Hi, I'm Gavin Cornwell, one of the founding engineers here at Alfresco, and more recently, the architect on the content services team responsible for our APIs.
And I'm Will Abson. I work in the process services team, and it's my job to help people build starter applications that sit on top of Alfresco's rich APIs.
In this video today, we're going to explain why our open APIs, open architecture, and open standards make our digital business platform the perfect choice to power your digital transformation projects.
But what do we mean by that? Well, we believe that bringing content, process, and people together is a key requirement of any modern business application. So we want to show you today how you can use Alfresco's open APIs and support for open standards to accomplish just that.
As you can see from the diagram we've drawn behind us, at the heart of our digital business platform is our comprehensive REST API, which allows you to power any application or custom integration. The Content Services REST API has lots of capabilities. One of the main ones is our Nodes API, which allows you to manage the lifecycle of your content, manage permissions, generate renditions, and manage the version history of changes you've made to your content. If you need to find stuff quickly in your repository, you can use our Search REST API in conjunction with term highlighting, faceting, and fingerprinting. If you're in a compliance environment, we've got you covered there too with our Governance REST APIs, which allow you to manage records and classified documents. And on the process side, we have lots of capabilities too, which Will's going to take you through shortly. Now, being an open source company, we like open APIs, and CMIS is one of those. CMIS stands for Content Management Interoperability Services. It's an OASIS standard, which defines a common cross-platform set of APIs allowing access to your content and search and version history and updating metadata, for example. It also has a custom model that you can customize to meet your needs. You can think of CMIS as SQL for content services, which makes it a great option if you have a heterogeneous environment or if you need to integrate repositories from multiple vendors. If the Content Services REST API doesn't cover exactly what you need, you can always implement your own functionality using web scripts. In combination with our scripting environment and our Java API, you can provide any integration or custom application that you may need. The possibilities really are just limited by your imagination. As well as open APIs, we think open standards are also very important. If you want to use existing tools in your organization to access the repository, you can do that via our support for standard file protocols such as CIFS, WebDAV, and FTP. If you're in a Microsoft environment, you can even expose the repository as a network drive. We've also implemented the Microsoft SharePoint protocols, which means the repository can appear and behave like a SharePoint server. This means your users can open, edit, and save their documents using any Office application completely seamlessly. So however you want to access your content, we have an option.
So, as Gavin mentioned, we also have a huge amount of capabilities in the REST API on the process side as well. So, for instance, you can manage process definitions that are held within the system, and you can start creating instances of those processes all through the REST API. You can interact with user tasks or pooled tasks that come up in the system as the process moves on through its life cycle. And you can set metadata on those tasks and on those active process instances. That metadata can be form-based, so we can deal with standard form definitions that are held within the system, and we can do all of this through the REST API. In addition, you can also collaborate with colleagues on this process content, and you can link in perhaps related content from the content side and add comments and many other types of things that you can do through the UI. You can also do through the REST API, so it's really powerful. If that still doesn't quite have what you want, maybe you want some custom functionality, again you can add this in on the process side, in this case using custom REST controllers. And these custom REST controllers are implemented using Spring MVC. So this is a standard technology, Java-based, and should be familiar to a wide variety of developers. So support for standards is really important in Alfresco process services as well. So like Gavin outlined CMIS on the content side, on the process side, the key relevant standard here is BPMN 2.0, which we provide full support for. BPMN stands for the Business Process Model and Notation, and as the name implies, the standard defines two things. It defines a representation of the process, so basically what's within the process definition and the way these different parts of the process are glued together. It also defines a way of describing that process in an XML file format. And you'll see support for this within our REST API. So for instance, you can import and export process definitions in that XML file format. Understanding BPMN is also quite important when it comes to extending the core underlying services within process services. So for instance, BPMN defines a few things. It defines events and tasks as key parts of the specification. Now, these are extensible, and in our implementation, we allow you to extend the business logic in this layer using scripting via JavaScript or Groovy, and you can even plug in custom Java logic that will run within the execution context when it reaches that point in the process. So BPMN is really important for our standards compliance and in allowing you to build rich apps against process services.
All of the REST APIs we've been talking about today have been defined using the Open API specification. This used to be called Swagger. It gives us lots of benefits, but one of the main ones is the ability to generate rich developer documentation for you to consume. We've made available an API Explorer for all of our services across content, search, governance, and process. The API Explorer explains the behavior of the endpoints and gives you information about the parameters that are expected and the JSON schema that's also expected on the input and the output. Best of all though, the API Explorer allows you to try and experiment with the APIs right in the API Explorer without having to install anything.
Another key thing to understand is the rich security model that we have across all three APIs here. So, for instance, we support authentication and authorization controls within the product. The authentication can go against any LDAP server such as Microsoft Active Directory or Apache DS. And for authorization, we have a system of internal controls that you can extend yourself. If you want single sign-on, then you can implement this using Kerberos or SAML or OAuth 2.0. We support all three major authentication and authorization standards there. This means that you can be signed in not just across one API, but across all three APIs that form part of the core product. Internally, these authentication controls are implemented using Spring Security, and this means that as a developer, you've got a lot of powerful hook points that you can use to augment the out-of-the-box behavior with your own custom logic. Or you can even replace our implementation with your own custom security implementation if you so wish.
And if you're thinking about developing mobile apps, you may want to take a look at our iOS and Android mobile SDKs. These bring mobile and process services to mobile. We've designed them to be familiar to a mobile developer, and all the features of the REST API are exposed via a very easy to use object model.
Alternatively, if you're developing web applications, you might be interested in the Alfresco JavaScript API library. Together with the Angular 2 components that we provide, this forms part of the Application Development Framework, or ADF, and the library is written entirely in JavaScript and can be embedded in any JavaScript-based project, so independent of any front-end client-side framework that you're using. You can even use it in server-side Node.js scripts if you so wish. So thank you for joining us today. We hope it's given you a good idea of just how much is in the Alfresco REST API and also how you can extend Alfresco and integrate with our core services.
We obviously haven't had time to cover everything in this short video, so I'd really encourage you to try the API Explorers and take a look at the other videos in the series.